This right here was long overdue. It's taken me quite a while to get to this point, but here we are. I recently decided to finally pick up and watch through Neon Genesis Evangelion. And boy, oh boy, I was not expecting the stuff I ended up getting. I have been recommended this show for literally my entire life, and as of last month, I've officially been initiated into the Neon Genesis Evangelion Watchers Club. I always saw all the hype around it as too good to be true. I just could not believe a series like this could be as good and nuanced as people make it out to be. A lot of anime fan bases, especially in shonen, really love to over-exemplify the nuances of their favorites and act like pretty simple writing techniques are actually their favorite battle shonen mangaka channeling Shakespeare himself into their bodies. So please forgive me for believing Eva would have been no different, because as of now, I've been proven wrong. Evangelion is not only one of the best shows I've ever seen in my time watching anime, but it's also one of the greatest studies of humanity, emotion, and emotional maturity that I've seen in fiction. I already loved Anno before getting into it, so I expected to enjoy it at least a bit, just because I like his style. But this thing really just blew my fucking socks off. It truly is as special as it's made out to be, and it really is my fault and my own mistake for not taking it seriously until now. I hate to say the fans are right about things, but the fans are right about this show right here. It's tough to begin or even make a video like this as there really isn't anything new I can bring to the table. Mostly everything that could be said about Eva has already been said at least 100 times over, but I still want to talk about it and give it the credit that I owe it. The series kind of starts off as what seems like a bit of a darker and grounded take on a sci-fi mecha anime that explores a bit of the dark side of militarism and government power, which is already interesting and unique, but as it goes on it becomes something much more. I personally really love watching a story set itself up, so even though the first 8 or so episodes are mostly just us getting familiar with everything, I was already really liking it by then. The introductions of characters like Shinji, Misato, Rei, Asuka, and even characters like Toji and Kensuke all really hooked me onto this world. There are a lot of moments where the atmosphere just settles in through the character's silence, and even though there's no words being spoken or even any images moving, you understand what you're seeing and feel something regardless. I bet a lot of people aren't fans of the frequent use of still frames. They do feel like they can drag at times, but I think they work in building those connections and sometimes awkwardness. I love stories that can speak to you without saying any actual words, and Anno is kind of addicted to that here. I love his style quite a lot. The character of Shinji expresses a lot of his main traits through still, silent images that illustrate how enclosed and isolated he feels, how silent his life seems to be, and how cold his mind is. A lot of pictures of him are used as memes, but a lot of these stills tell you so much as just one image. It's an interesting and subtle way to characterize him while still not feeling cheap. He doesn't talk a lot in the first half of the show, but you still learn so much through the small amount of dialogue he does have, constantly repeating to himself to not run away, saying he doesn't recognize the ceiling of the hospital after he wakes up there for the first time. Moments like these say so much with so little, and have more meaning to them than most moments in other anime where the main characters have these expo dump monologues to tell you everything about them without a shroud of character to it. It is a very played out, boring, and uninformative appraisal to say a character feels like a real person because, well, that's just what characters are supposed to be. But Shinji's character is one of the most painfully real that I've seen. The portrayal of self-hatred done in his introspect feels all too personal. It almost feels like venting through the screen, and it's surprisingly in-depth for a 26-episode sci-fi anime. His character is so grounded to the point it feels like Anno used this story originally to vent all of his own insecurities and anger with himself into this world. And that's just so interesting to me. The intrigue of this series goes far beyond just the story itself and even into the creator and the people involved, because it is a very personal story. The narrative also manages to point out through its main cast of characters a truth about human nature that many don't acknowledge, which is how we fear the same things that we desire. Desiring friendship and connection, but fearing rejection and conflict. Wanting love and romance, but fearing touch and intimacy. Wanting to get over your past, but too afraid to face it. wanting to be treated like an adult but fearing responsibility. These are things that trouble so many of the main cast of the series in their own separate ways. Everyone is so different, and yet they're all caught in the same tragic, self-loathing web. Our own self-consciousness holds us back from accepting ourselves and accepting our needs and feelings. Our minds try so hard to make us feel insignificant, and sometimes it doesn't feel like you could ever shut that feeling down. It feels like nothing can just quiet those thoughts. Instead, they just get worse and start to tread you lower and lower until eventually you just stop. Self-hate and depression are very tough themes here, and sometimes it's a little too honest to stomach, but that is necessary. It always is. It's beyond calling a character relatable at this point, as in a way, Shinji and the cast often feel like a rough, cracked mirror that forces you to look into yourself and your own troubles with yourself. Whether it comes to friendship, romance, sexuality, it gets to the point where you no longer just see parts of yourself in the story, and rather see yourself as the story. As someone who has dealt with struggles in accepting myself for my appearance, my personality, my ability, and my sexual identity, Evangelion at times made me a little overwhelmed. But at the same time, I couldn't help but appreciate it for somewhat challenging my ability to stomach such a grounded story about a bunch of people that just don't like themselves, that blame themselves for so much, that fear their alienation and future, and yet continue going on about their lives into fighting for that future anyways. I really wasn't expecting Misato to end up being one of my favorite characters in the show at first, but she really shocked me. Aside from Shinji, she's one of the characters these problems are explored through the most. She mirrors him heavily and contrasts as the adult version of many of these problems that only seem to evolve rather than disappear. Rei's character is also incredibly interesting to me, as her characterization and mental state is explored through unique, abstract imagery. Her alienation and struggle with individuality is one of the sharpest and most effective arcs of the show, as everything involving her triggers a lot of deep and heavy thought into what really makes someone one. There were only a couple times where I felt like punches were being held in the writing process of the story, and everywhere else, Anno's mental state is aggressively put forth through the story of Eva. I found myself strangely least interested in the show when we actually got to the mecha battles. Not that I wasn't interested in the Angels or the Evas, because they were still entertaining and at times absolutely brilliant, such as the Rogue Eva episode with Toji and Kaworu's episode. The episodes with Kaworu are some of my favorite in the entire show because, well, for one, gay, but also because I thought it was very interesting to showcase just how some very short-lived relationships can greatly impact how you connect with other people and how you view the world. His time in the anime was very short-lived, which I'm very sad about, but he made one of the biggest impacts of any character in the entire series, and I really enjoyed his episodes. They were some of the biggest highlights for me. I know I'm probably not the first person to say that, but once again, they're great episodes, so they deserve their praise. It's also where Shinji's just the most different. We see him, opening up more to someone of his level, and I think that was really nice to see, even if it ended in tragedy. It's never really about what's actually going on the battlefield, which is why it's never really that flashy, and sometimes repetitive. I know a lot of people get angry when someone says, oh, this mega show is good because it's about the characters and not the mechs. And, I can see why, because it's such a lazy and just overall false narrative, so don't worry, I'm avoiding making that statement because I just don't believe that. What I do believe, however, is that Evangelion does have some of the strongest character work of any anime that I've seen. It might honestly be the best just from a writing and personal perspective. A lot of authors talk about how they put all of themselves into their work, and here in Eva is where I feel it is the most apparent because of just how painfully honest and real it is, without ever becoming fully pessimistic or nihilistic, which some people seem to interpret the series as, which I don't fully agree with. I will be reviewing End of Evangelion soon, so maybe that will open up eyes some more, but so far, while the show is a bit darker than most and paints reality as bleaker than a lot of anime try to, I don't don't think the show ever fully spirals into hopelessness. While the finale of the anime is rather complicated in deciphering whether or not it is for the better, I never once felt like all was lost by the end. I will say though, the reality that the end of the anime paints out is rather tragic and pretty scary. I'm not the best analyst in the world, and I'm not going to try to act like the final 2 episodes entirely clicked in my mind, but when people talk about how confusing the series can be, those last 2 episodes are usually what they're talking about, since they're very much left up for interpretation as they abandon a lot of conventional and formulaic storytelling tools in order to paint something much more abstract and philosophical. It's like a form of reflection to ask you what exactly all of this meant to you, which I'm still figuring out for myself. They're very dense and packed up, so it's kind of hard to interpret without using other sources like the movie, which I won't talk about here. And there's just a lot of different ways you can twist it, so I guess it's all up to you. And that is something I can appreciate and respect. And with that, I will come back with an updated video and review on the end of Evangelion next week, so stay tuned for that because it's pretty much necessary to watch that along with this video, just like how it is necessary to watch the movie along with the anime. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did and want to see me talk about Evangelion some more, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your favorite character in the series, because there are a lot of great characters in this show. This was a bit of a tougher video to make just because there is so much to talk about with Evangelion, and I definitely did not talk about everything I wanted to cover, but this was the best I could do. Once again, if you're new, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notification, and share this video with your friends, and as always, I will see you all next time. Have a good day.